Item Number SCP-700 Object Class Safe Special Containment Procedures. As SCP-700 is immobile, one security team is to be permanently placed at the site to prevent the entrance of civilians and unauthorized personnel. They are to be equipped with breath masks at all times while inside of SCP-700. SCP-700-1 remain closed all the time. Its hatch may only be opened if all personnel present inside SCP-700 are wearing full-body, non-organic biohazard suits and breath masks, and only for the purpose of running necessary tests. Following Incident 700-1, this part of the containment procedure is no longer necessary. See Incident Log 700-1 for more details. Description: SCP-700 is a large abandoned building, similar to a factory in design, located in a rural area of USA. It contains floors, one being underground, each containing rooms. Many of these rooms are built in a way that does not appear to serve any specific purpose, containing, for example, redundant machinery, sewage pipes that are not connected to any kind of disposal unit, and numerous power cords extended across the room in a manner similar to sash cords. Graffiti pictures, designated SCP-700-2, can be observed inside SCP-700's rooms. They usually depict humanoid creatures, although animal figures were also observed. All instances of SCP-700-2 have shown the capacity to move around the walls of their room. Their frequency of movement varies depending on what room SCP-700-2 is located. For example, rooms blocked with iron bars will turn SCP-700-2 mostly immobile, with only slight movements being made at seemingly random periods of time. It is currently unknown if the graffiti are sentient, but as their movement patterns are erratic and considering that all attempts at communicating with them have failed, it is assumed that they are not. Inside the central room of the underground floor is a circular hole, designated SCP-700-1. It is 10 meters deep and with a radius of 1.5 meters. An iron hatch is connected to the hole. There are 0.3 ml plastic syringes attached to the walls, all positioned 1 meter above the bottom of SCP-700-1. At the center of the hole's floor is a 1 by 1 meter grate that leads into an unlit chamber. Removing the syringes from the wall is possible, however new syringes will grow to replace the lost ones a few moments after their removal. The syringes at the bottom of SCP-700-1 are constantly producing a yellow liquid, composed primarily of human, including menses. This mixture produces a fragrance deemed to be very attractive to all humans that come into contact with it. If SCP-700-1 is left open, the smell will spread through all the rooms of the building. Upon smelling this fragrance for a small period of time, usually minutes, subjects will begin to unconsciously move towards SCP-700-1. If not stopped, they will throw themselves down SCP-700-1. The fall will usually result in fractured bones, but all observed subjects seem to be unaware of the fact, concentrating solely on consuming the liquid dropped by the syringes. After a human falls inside SCP-700-1, the hatch will automatically close, and loud mechanical sounds will be heard coming from an undetermined place within SCP-700. At this point, opening SCP-700-1's hatch will reveal a solid concrete floor instead of the hole, and will also bring the sounds to a halt. Approximately minutes after closing, SCP-700-1 will reopen by itself, revealing the hole again, but the human inside will have disappeared. During the test, all recording devices, like cameras, placed inside SCP-700-1 were destroyed by unknown means as soon as the hatch closed. Hours after the disappearance of the subject, a new instance of SCP-700-2 will be found in one of SCP-700's rooms. SCP-700 came to the attention of the Foundation after various reports of a man called Mr. selling living art painted on concrete blocks. When confronted by Foundation personnel, Mr. attempted to flee and injured one agent before killing himself when it became clear he could not escape. The coordinates for the location of the building were found at his house on. The Foundation was able to find and destroy of the blocks that Mr. sold. The owners of the blocks were given Class B amnesiacs. Addendum 700-1. Staff working inside SCP-700 have reported sightings of a featureless humanoid figure silently walking inside SCP-700's rooms immediately after a human vanishes inside SCP-700-1. This entity, designated SCP-700-3, disappears when researchers try to make physical contact with it, and it does not respond when communication is attempted. Thus far, SCP-700-3 has proved to be harmless. Any changes in SCP-700-3's behavior are to be reported immediately. Addendum 700-2. Recently, researchers and D-Class personnel that observed pictures of SCP-700-2 claim to have momentarily seen the graffiti and some of them moving. Further tests have confirmed that SCP-700-2 depicted in photographs will appear to move only to subjects with a previous history of. What caused this phenomenon is currently unknown. Incident Log 700-1 on Dr. brought 4 D-Class personnel to SCP-700 with the intention of discovering the nature of the chamber below SCP-700-1. To achieve this, D-9462 was provided with a crowbar and was instructed to use it to remove the grate located at the bottom of SCP-700-1. When D-9462 struck SCP-700-1's grate with the crowbar, a loud shriek could be heard coming from all rooms of the building. SCP-700-1's hatch closed immediately after the shriek ceased. Since the incident, opening the hatch will only reveal a solid concrete floor. As of SCP-700-1 did not reappear. Manifestations of SCP-700-3 have also stopped occurring. As a result, SCP-700 was reclassified as safe. Item Number SCP-2170 Object Class Euclid Special Containment Procedures. Regular exposure to SCP-2170 is necessary for its continued existence and containment. Site-2170 is publicly known as the Clown Motel, staffed by Foundation personnel for the purpose of memetic inoculation to prepare researchers and agents for SCP-2170 exposure. In order for the memetic inoculation to be effective, all staff at Site-2170 must have a sincere appreciation of classical clown imagery and materials. Agents or personnel who find clowns disturbing or not amusing must not be allowed to visit Site-2170. Research personnel are to spend at least 8 hours off-duty in Site-2170 for exposure to SCP-2170. For safety purposes, please view the following image inoculation before reading about SCP-2170. Recommended viewing time is 30 seconds. Description: SCP-2170 are non-physical memetic entities which are experienced within the abandoned mine in Topeka, Nevada. As memetic entities, they exist within the senses of nearby sentient beings. Exposed personnel describe them as whispering voices and fleeting images. The entities themselves are non-malicious and only seek interaction for the purpose of self-preservation, but exposure is detrimental to the long-term physical and mental health of those who perceive them unless, for undetermined reasons, subjects have recently enjoyed thoughts about clowns. There is no direct relation between clowns and SCP-2170 beyond this fact, and SCP-2170 expresses distaste for clown iconography. Symptoms of mild SCP-2170 exposure begin with the inability to accurately read written language due to auditory and visual hallucinations. Continued exposure results in paranoia, increased hostility, self-harming, and seizures. Sustained unprotected exposure to SCP-2170 leads to death in most cases except for individuals diagnosed with sociopathic tendencies. Please view the following image inoculation before continuing. Recommended viewing time is 30 seconds. Symptoms: 100% lethal to adult males. After 24 hours, body tissue becomes cancerous and generates sufficient heat to burn skin. SCP-2170 entities are dormant when not being perceived, and will cease to exist if not perceived on a regular basis. SCP-2170 enjoys regular communication with trained Foundation staff. Communication with SCP-2170 entities is best achieved indirectly via written messages. Although SCP-2170 cannot physically alter written material, they can alter a reader's perception sufficiently to communicate. This exposure is safe provided inoculation measures are carefully maintained. Most information regarding the history and nature of SCP-2170 have been given by the entities themselves. Local historical records do not corroborate the testimony of SCP-2170, and despite the benign nature of the entities, no information that they provide is to be taken as fact until physically verified off-site by unexposed personnel. Please view the following image inoculation before continuing. As memetic entities, they are capable of existing within written documentation. Therefore, all further references to SCP-2170 must be deleted from Foundation records immediately, specifically including new research regarding exposure. The following material are communications and claims by SCP-2170 entities that have been transcribed by on-site staff, including annotations from independent research. Please note that as SCP-2170 is mimetic in nature, even sanitized logs of communication of SCP-2170 can trigger symptoms of exposure. If you experience any feelings of unease or confusion, please stare at the following emergency image inoculation to counteract SCP-2170 exposure. You need to love clowns, but nobody loves clowns, not even us. Date: statements from 2170 in context and verified or not verified. Cracks in the night sky, falling stars open new worlds that crumple in fire. Regarding first contact with human consciousness, see Document 2170-AA regarding Tonopah Death Plague. Verified. Foundation quarantine successful in preventing mimetic outbreak. Cover story of pneumonia disseminated. 1903. Distrust builds. Whispering sees brother turn upon brother. Claimed by SCP-2170 that they were indirectly responsible for rioting miners. Not verified. Foundation surveillance indicates riots were between local workers and Chinese immigrants over mundane issues. Participants unexposed to SCP-2170. 1910. Paradise found in a shining home. Everything that man and Whisper could wish for in harmony. Claimed that a team of miners had found the secret golden city at SCP-2170. Not verified. Agents Culver and Fredericks KIA an expedition to find location. No rumors among local miners of such a discovery. 1919. As Brother turns away unsatisfied, new blood runs untapped deeper within the land. Claims of undiscovered veins of silver and gold within mine. Not verified, later determined to be hoaxed by SCP-2170 to increase exposure. 1931. A lost behemoth dies in the desert. A pale mass haunts the night in vengeance. We are afraid. Verified. A circus elephant from a traveling show escaped its enclosure and fell into a mine shaft. One of the clowns went on a drunken rampage afterwards. Containment procedures updated. 1940. We foresee a stunning light that makes the ground boil. Salvation comes with a price. Prediction of terrible destruction which will result in steady sustenance. Verified. Reference predicted nuclear testing at the Tonopah test range which began. The test range becomes the primary economic activity within Tonopah. Now, we just want to talk. It's true. 19. I will kiss your shadow while you sleep. Verified. They will kiss your shadow and you will be able to feel it. 19. Molesting a ham will go unpunished. Context unknown. Not verified. The ham was of age and gave consent. 1790. Sweet sale, free internet, good rates, pets okay, doesn't matter, everyone hates him. Verified. The motel's rates are very competitive but business is slow because of all the damn clowns. 3450. Truckers okay. Truckers are not okay. 993. Change the channel, change the channel, change the channel. Verified. He is educational. You would make a tasty soup. Verified. The broth created by stewing your flesh and bones would create a nutritious meal for a large group on a cold, cold day. Addendum. My favorite color is clear, that way I can always see you. Verified. Item Number SCP-099. Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-099 is kept in a 1 m by 75 cm wall-mounted fireproof case in Gallery 27. Standard climate and humidity controls apply to this section of the gallery. Due to its properties, SCP-099 can only be viewed within the gallery by Level 2 staff or higher, and only from a distance greater than 5 meters, and for a period not to exceed 5 minutes per day. When not being viewed, the case is to remain shut and electronically locked. Description: SCP-099 is a 73 by 50 cm painting titled The Portrait. Created in 1935 by surrealist painter Rene Magritte, the original painting possesses mimetic properties that trigger acute paranoia and lingering psychological effects when viewed for too long or from a distance of approximately 3 meters or less. The painting depicts a simple still life with the addition of a single eye staring back at the viewer. A reproduction of the work currently hangs in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, with critical elements removed to prevent the paranoia trigger. For a detailed description of the changes, refer to Document 099-B. Detailed reproductions and photographs of the original work retains mimetic properties. Those who have viewed the painting for too long or from too close of a distance become subject to the delusion that any being or depiction of a being with eyes is staring at them. In extreme cases, subjects report that inanimate objects are making eye contact. The condition is so severe that subjects will even report making eye contact with individuals whose heads are completely turned away. Depending on the length of the original exposure to the painting, subjects may suffer from this condition until death, resulting in severe paranoia and ankylophobia. Addendum: SCP-099 was recovered from the private collection of K. Sage, another surrealist painter. Recovery was performed by Mobile Task Force Data-6, Pink Panther. Miss Sage was unaware of the recovery and replacement of SCP-099, although pre-recovery investigations suggest she was aware of its properties and was either immune or careful not to look too closely. Magritte was still alive at the time SCP-099 was stored in Gallery 27. He remained under Foundation surveillance until his death in 1967. Research suggests that the painting's mimetic trigger was intentionally created, although the effect and power of the trigger was likely unintentional. The Foundation has studied the rest of Magritte's work and found no anomalous mimetic properties to this date. Weaponized replication. Data has been expunged. Item number SCP-2112. Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Due to its cultural significance and the period of time elapsed between its creation and discovery of SCP-2112, full eradication of SCP-2112's primary carrier is impossible at this time. The Foundation shall liaise with the management of Rush and with any relevant record labels to prevent any future production of SCP-2112 carrying sound recordings. All known sound recordings carrying SCP-2112 are to be seized by the Foundation and archived or destroyed as deemed necessary, and information regarding the release of affected editions is to be removed from public information archives where possible. Foundation field personnel are to monitor stores selling used LPs or compact discs, online auction houses and used goods sellers, and digital distribution services for any appearance of SCP-2112 carriers. The Foundation shall monitor all public performances by bands advertising themselves with any variation on the phrase "a tribute to Rush" or with a name referencing the lyrics of any Rush song, for evidence of SCP-2112 infection. Any identified SCP-2112 infectees are to be detained, interviewed to identify the source of infection, and treated with Class B amnesiacs. In the event of a widespread outbreak of SCP-2112, large-scale deployment of Class E amnesiacs is authorized. Personnel with an expressed fondness for the music of Rush are prohibited from exposure to SCP-2112 materials and are to be monitored for any behavior indicative of SCP-2112 infection. Description: SCP-2112 is a mimetic phenomenon associated with Caress of Steel, a 1975 album by the Canadian progressive rock band Rush. SCP-2112 is not present on the original master recordings or on most common commercial releases of the album, and is known to manifest only on 3 limited release editions: a quadraphonic mix of the original LP issued in 1975, a digital remaster issue on SACD in 1999, and a high-fidelity remaster issue on LP in 2011. Reproductions or copies of affected discs do not produce SCP-2112 phenomena. An audio examination of affected discs have detected no distinguishable differences from non-anomalous recordings other than artifacts caused by the remixing and remastering process. SCP-2112's primary anomalous effect manifests when an affected disc is listened to, in its entirety, by a person who identifies him or herself as a fan of the music of Rush and possesses any level of experience in playing the electric guitar, electric bass, or drums. Exposed individuals become obsessed with the idea of establishing a tribute band dedicated to performing cover versions of the music of Rush in public, regardless of their level of musical expertise or current occupation or membership in other bands, and will attempt to seek out 2 other SCP-2112 infectees for that purpose. SCP-2112 infectees have been noted to go to any lengths available to achieve this goal, including resigning from their job, relocating to another part of the world, selling off major possessions in order to acquire instruments or equipment, or deliberately exposing others to SCP-099 in an attempt to create potential bandmates. In the event that 3 infectees are successful in establishing a group, they will begin to seek out any venue that will allow them to perform in public and will do so as often as possible, performing sets composed entirely of the music of Rush and their original arrangements. The music produced by SCP-099 infectees during live performances additionally serves to propagate SCP-099 to any persons exposed to it. In this form, transmission of SCP-099 occurs much more readily than in persons exposed to the source disks, with any person who identifies as a fan of the music of Rush potentially becoming infected, whether or not they possess any musical skill, after approximately 15 to 20 minutes of exposure. Testing with D-Class personnel indicated that even individuals with no prior familiarity with Rush and only a rudimentary level of skill with any musical instrument have a 70% chance of becoming infected after approximately 2 hours of exposure to live performances by SCP-099 infectees. Post-infection behavior in such individuals is identical to that of persons infected by exposure to the source disks. SCP-099 came to the Foundation's attention on 2012, when an hour-long nightly news broadcast produced by television station in Portland, Maine, was observed to consist entirely of 3 of the network's broadcast personnel, identifying themselves as Bytor and the Snow Dogs, performing a live rendition of Rush's 1981 album Moving Pictures. The overwhelming majority of the commercials aired during the broadcast, rather than advertising any product or service, additionally portrayed various local businessmen and politicians performing fragments of Rush songs with varying degrees of skill. Upon investigation, it was found that a performance by a trio of infectees, broadcast on local radio station 5 days earlier, had caused a rapid spread of SCP-099 infection throughout the Portland metro area, and that approximately 73% of the region's live music venues had booked Rush tribute bands to perform the following night. Implementation of Procedure Wordham 673, followed by aerial dispersal of Class E amnesiacs throughout the area, was deemed necessary to prevent further spread. Current models indicate that, in the event of an unchecked SCP-099 outbreak, the phenomenon would reach pandemic status within 3 weeks of the formation of the first tribute band. The members of Rush, in interviews conducted by the Foundation, have claimed no knowledge or of any involvement in the creation of SCP-099. Addendum. Memo from Project Research Manager Edwards. Some have questioned why SCP-099 warrants classification as a Keter. It is true that SCP-099 poses no direct threat to human life or the continued existence of the human race. Were every person susceptible to SCP-099 infection to be infected, it would likely not result in a single fatality. What it does present, however, is a severe existential threat to the entirety of human culture, the arts, and all forms of creative work whatsoever. Man is a wonderfully creative animal and has developed a myriad of ways of expressing his thoughts and emotions, through poetry, dance, film, the written word, theater, painting, sculpture, video games, even internet memes. We run the risk of every one of these mediums, every single last one of them, disappearing from our common existence forever, in favor of thousands of millions of mediocre everymen performing the exact same songs over and over again. Item Number SCP-2250 Object Class Euclid Special Containment Procedures. As no viable method for permanent containment of SCP-2250 has been found, efforts are to be made to keep susceptible species of waterfowl out of a 5-kilometer radius centered on Blotch Park and Selma, Alabama. To this end, the Central Alabama Field Unit has been tasked with the elimination of these species from the designated no-fly zones, and a disinformation campaign has been effected, focusing on the threat of a lethal avian-borne pathogen that is able to infect humans. This has so far been effective in allowing the Central Alabama Field Unit to operate without hindrance from government agencies or environmental groups. Civilians witnessing SCP-2250 in any form are to be detained and supplied with a Class B amnestic. Should these civilians have lost their dog to SCP-2250, they are to be supplied with a suitable replacement and led to believe it is the original. Any research with the goal of partially or fully deciphering the language or communication used by susceptible species of waterfowl is to be covertly disrupted in any way possible. Description: SCP-2250 is a mimetic contagion currently exclusively affecting various species of waterfowl in and around Blotch Park in Selma, Alabama. Footnote says here that species observed to be susceptible to SCP-2250 infection are the common merganser, ruddy duck, bufflehead, mallard, and the American widgeon. Tests to determine the vector of infection for this mimetic contagion have yielded evidence that SCP-2250 is spread between waterfowl through interspecies communication and vocalization. Those waterfowl prevented from vocalizing were unable to create new instances of SCP-2250, and those deafened showed no signs of infection. Once exposed to SCP-2250's mimetic triggers, susceptible waterfowl will be subject to SCP-2250 activation events at intermittent times. The animals involved are not innately anomalous, but are subject to SCP-2250 activation events during which they should be treated as such. When an SCP-2250 activation event occurs, the affected animal becomes an SCP-2250-1 instance. It will cease movement, open its beak, and produce a series of sounds in the 25 to 32 kHz range. Canines within a range of up to 2 km show a general tendency to move towards the point of origin for these sounds, though not all canines act on this impulse. Those animals approaching affected waterfowl, and entering a radius of approximately 2 meters, are prone to being trapped by SCP-2250-2. SCP-2250-2 are darkly colored tentacles with an average diameter of approximately 3 mm and composed of a tissue with a genetic makeup bearing close resemblance to that of the Pacific lugworm. These emerge from an SCP-2250-1 specimen's beak once a canine approaches to within circa 2 meters. SCP-2250-2 can typically reach beyond this range as necessary, with an as-of-yet undetermined upper limit. Having emerged, SCP-2250-2 instances will wrap around their prey and exert up to 800 newtons of force in order to pull it towards SCP-2250-1. Once close enough, canines trapped by SCP-2250-2 are swallowed whole by SCP-2250-1. This usually occurs despite the clear discrepancies between the range of motion for SCP-2250-1's beak and the dimensions of the canine involved. Observations have not yielded a concrete explanation for this phenomenon, with video logs simply showing the canines disappearing into the beak hole without apparently suffering damage to their physical form. All SCP-2250-2 then retract into SCP-2250-1, which will remain motionless and unreactive to any form of stimuli throughout the entire process. Despite this invasive process and the potential for extensive physical trauma, SCP-2250-1 instances are not harmed during this process. Once swallowed, prey does not travel down the esophagus, instead disappearing from SCP-2250-1 altogether. Attempts to track test subjects have almost exclusively yielded a location approximately 6.2 km beneath the island of Molokai. Attempts to reach this location has of yet proven fruitless. In one incident, the location returned was in the Pelican Nebula. However, there was no conceivable way a GPS signal could be picked up from that location, nor should have been able to travel back to Earth within the time frame given. If not fully destroyed, an SCP-2250-1 instance will remain motionless for a period of up to 2 hours, after which it will regurgitate the partially digested remains of the previously ingested canine. SCP-2250-1 will then revert to its non-anomalous state, showing signs of extreme distress and often trying to flee the immediate area. Remains of prey are covered in a high-viscosity fluid containing brine, digestive enzymes, mucus, glycoproteins, and electrolytes. Tests using adult human subjects placed within range of an SCP-2250-1 during an activation event have not produced results. It is possible these tests could provoke SCP-2250-2 emergence if performed using subjects of a smaller stature, but no such tests are currently planned. Addendum 2250-A/01 Transcript of Initial 911 Call DD-201-303-14 Call initiated at 9:13 p.m., March 14, 2013. Dispatcher, Selma 911, what's the location of your emergency? Woman in distress, saying, Blotch Park, it's eating my Boris. Your child was attacked, ma'am? Not my child, my dog. That duck is eating my Rottweiler. Ma'am, please stay calm. If you're suffering from Oh god, he's gone. Boris is gone, and those weird tentacle things. Ducks don't have tentacles. Ma'am, I'm going to send some police officers to check on you. Please remain where you are. What are they going to do, arrest the duck? Get my fucking dog... Connection lost. Hello, ma'am? Ma'am? Call terminated at 9:14 p.m. Same date. Police officers responding to the emergency call found a Miss in a state of severe distress. Foundation field agents dispatched administered amnestics to both Miss and the police officers involved. They are also recovered partially digested remains of one adult Rottweiler. No teeth marks were visible. The duck involved was identified and subjected to a full physical examination. This yielded no significant results. Item number SCP-2740. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. Due to the nature of SCP-2740, any means of direct containment are currently unfeasible. Access to Street, Indiana is forbidden, and is to be enforced by Foundation security personnel. Cover Story Delta-4B gas leak is to be disseminated in Indiana. Standard Cognitohazardous object amnestic treatment is available to all personnel assigned to SCP-2740. Description: the nature, appearance, and potential existence of SCP-2740 is uncertain. SCP-2740 is believed to possibly exist in the northwest corner of the attic in the home of the Lee family at Street, Indiana, in a location roughly 6 meters from the ladder leading to it. Individuals attempting to approach the ladder leading to the attic will find themselves unable to do so, while individuals can approach the ladder and, in certain cases, even begin to climb it. Upon further inspection, it will always be discovered that these individuals did not in actuality do so. The reason for this is currently unknown. Additionally, it is uncertain if this effect exists at all. Research into this phenomenon is ongoing. The only information gathered regarding SCP-2740 has been done so through interviews with affected individuals. SCP-2740 appears to instill a sense of intense dread in any individual cognizant of it, although the reason for this is unknown. This effect begins upon entering the house at Street, or by becoming cognizant of SCP-2740 through discussion with other individuals affected by its anomalous nature. Interview 2740-A, Franklin Lee. The following interview was conducted after the discovery of SCP-2740 with Franklin Lee, the owner of the home at Street and patriarch of the Lee family. Interviewer: Dr. K. Dorset. Interviewee: Franklin Lee. Begin log. When did you begin to notice something was wrong? Maybe, I don't know, it was years ago. It wasn't always like this, though. In the beginning it was just something, you could ignore it. I remember there would be times I would walk down the hall upstairs and just glance at it and get this feeling. Can you describe the feeling? Like there was something up there. Not that I could see it or anything, and we didn't hear anything either. The mood in the house changed, and we thought it was because No, it wasn't that. Mr. Lee, who do you mean, she? Our oldest daughter, Olivia. She left when she was 17, and there were some other things going on then. We were going through some hard times. Olivia left to go live with my wife's sister. We haven't talked to her in years. I don't know, maybe we did start to notice it then? What did you originally notice? The quiet. Everything was real quiet. It didn't sound like a house with 3 other kids, but I don't know. It just built up over time, right? And after a while I decided I needed to know. I needed to find out what was up there. Would she have left? Mr. Lee? I tried. I can't tell you how many times I tried. I'll begin climbing and open my eyes, and I'll be back in bed or in the living room by the TV, and the feeling never goes away. I quit my job. I couldn't handle the stress. I couldn't explain it to anyone. Everyone thought I was crazy, but there were a few times I contemplated knocking the whole house down. I even signed the papers once, but then I called back and the company didn't exist anymore.
Why didn't you move? You don't think we didn't try? It was like climbing that ladder. You get halfway up, you push open the door, and you can feel it, but then you're sitting at the kitchen table. End log. Following this interview, Mr. Lee and his family were moved to Site-81 for holding an examination, with release pending further study of their mental condition. The Lee family has not been moved to Site-81. Information claiming otherwise has been proven inaccurate. Research into this is ongoing. Interview 2740-B, Yvette Lee. The following interview was conducted after the discovery of SCP-2740 with Yvette Lee, the co-owner of the home at Street and matriarch of the Lee family. Interviewer: Dr. K. Dorset. Interviewee: Yvette Lee. Begin log. Mrs. Lee, can you tell me anything about why your husband wasn't able to articulate any details about SCP-2740? Have you not been in the house, Dr. Dorset? I have not. My station has been here at our mobile facility. Then you can't understand. We've lived there for 20 years, and we can't even do anything about it either. We've tried everything, but nothing works. We have reason to believe that you have entered the attic on… Can you confirm this? Footnote 1. This information was gathered after discussions with the 3 young Lee children, each of whom referred to an event where their mother entered the attic, stayed for several minutes, and then descended. No other information was recovered regarding this incident. No, of course not, Mrs. Lee, this will be much easier if you can be honest with us. My husband and I, we've been good parents, but we fought with Olivia over so many things that seem inconsequential now, but it drove a wedge between us, and we all knew there was something festering in that space. She couldn't admit the mistakes that she had made. When she left, I could still feel the wedge, like it never went away. One night I woke up and heard her, and went to the ladder and climbed up to it and… I don't know. It wasn't Olivia. End log. Incident Log 2740-A. After interviews with Mr. and Mrs. Lee and their children, and with neighbors also affected by SCP-2740, all of whom were certain of the existence of SCP-2740, but uncertain of any other details, several attempts were made to penetrate the attic, both manned and unmanned. In all cases, further investigation revealed that no attempts were actually made, regardless of the claims made by involved personnel stating otherwise. These attempts may have included direct access through the second-floor attic ladder, shaped charges situated at various points on the second-floor ceiling, drone access through the ladder opening, manned and unmanned access by cutting through the roof, and complete leveling of the home. As stated above, no records exist that any of these methods were actually attempted. Interview Log 2740-C, Olivia Lee. The following interview was taken after the eldest daughter of the Lee family, Olivia, was located in working as a landscape contractor after changing her name to Rebecca Feldman. Interviewer: Dr. H. Garrett. Interviewee: Rebecca Feldman, aka Olivia Lee. Begin log. Miss Feldman, what I want to discuss with you is a phenomenon associated with your parents' home, likely located in the the attic, I know. I thought somebody would come after me about that. I just didn't think it would be so soon. Are you saying you're aware of this phenomenon? I left my parents when I was a kid, Dr. Garrett. We had always fought. They weren't happy with the choices I had made, the things I believed in, the people I spent time with. There was anger there, so much anger I thought it might suffocate me. When I left, I felt like I could breathe again. I never went back after that, but sometimes I can still feel it. You know how you feel when you're dreaming, and you're trying to run from something but you can't see it, and you don't know if it's really there, but you run anyways? That's how it feels. What prompted you to leave your parents? There was one night, we had a fight, and my dad was drinking and Mom was even worse off at that point, and I had kept a knife under my pillow for a long time in case something would happen, and they came into my room that night. I don't know what their intentions were, but I drew it and backed them into the wall. The whole thing felt like I was being choked, and that was the first time I heard it, something moving above me. I dropped the knife and ran, and I didn't look back. Do you know anything about what is in the attic, Miss Feldman? There was always secrets, Doctor. There's only so much that hate can build up in a place before it starts hating you back. I don't know what's in the attic. or if there's anything up there at all, and I don't think I want to. End log. At the conclusion of this interview, Ms. Feldman was detained by Foundation personnel pending further investigation of her claims. Currently, it is believed that Olivia Lee does not exist, nor has ever existed. The information in Interview Log 2740-C is undergoing further examination.
Item Number SCP-251 Object Class Euclid Special Containment Procedures SCP-251 is to be kept in a locked container at all times. No one is to enter the container alone. If anyone is found to have been left alone in the container for any amount of time, they are to be treated as violently hostile and terminated with extreme prejudice. The container is to be guarded by armed personnel at all times, and guards should never allow anyone, regardless of clearance level, to move the artifact or be alone with it. Sounds of screaming, gunfire, and fires will be heard from within the container. This is normal. Description: Origin unknown. SCP-251 consistently appears to be a small snow globe. Attached is a series of photographs taken of the same artifact over time. This indicates that the snow globe is at least partially animate. However, when viewed directly by multiple people, there is no apparent movement except by a perpetual blizzard. SCP-251 has not been moved since its arrival at Site-19, but the snowflakes have never ceased falling. The scenes depicted in SCP-251 are all extremely violent or morbid, occasionally depicting something fantastical, while mostly depicting more realistic brutality. All those who have been alone with SCP-251 for any amount of time have later displayed extreme violence, xenophobia, and emotional distress. Item Number SCP-1901 Object Class Euclid Special Containment Procedures All instances of SCP-1901-1 are to be held within a containment vault located within Site-77. All instances of SCP-1901 are to be covered with black cloth, which is to be recovered only for testing purposes. Any personnel believing that they may be affected by SCP-1901 are to report to their supervising researcher immediately. SCP-1901-2 are to be held in a separate containment vault, with personnel assigned to research it being given weekly psychological examinations. Any personnel displaying signs of SCP-1901-2 exposure are to be given psychiatric counseling, followed by permanent reassignment to projects not involving direct exposure to anomalous artifacts. Description: SCP-1901 collectively designates approximately 49 sheets of corrugated cardboard with varying anomalous properties, with the sub-designation of SCP-1901-1 and SCP-1901-2. All instances of SCP-1901 have the images of various celebrities printed on them. Each individual instance's shape roughly correlates with that of the subject it depicts. The words "Property of Full Humbug Associates" are printed on each SCP-1901. Human subjects exposed to an instance of SCP-1901-1 without being informed of its true nature will perceive it as a human being identical to the person depicted. Subjects have not reported any movement or vocalizations originating from SCP-1901-1 instances. This effect will last until the subject attempts to interact with the SCP-1901-1 instance, at which point they will cease being affected. Photographs and videos taken of the SCP-1901-1 instance will also be affected. Subjects may express confusion or disappointment upon the cessation of the anomalous effect. No long-term effects have been found to occur from this type of exposure. Initially, all instances of SCP-1901-2 were believed to have an identical effect as SCP-1901-1. Footnote 1. Note that while all instances of SCP-1901-2 share SCP-1901's effect, the reverse is not true. However, intensive testing determined that if a specific context was provided to the subject prior to exposure, a secondary effect would trigger. If affected, subjects will perceive a fully three-dimensional humanoid with personality and appearance identical to that of the person SCP-1901-2 depicts. This effect persists as long as the subject is able to view the instance. When affected in this way, manifestations of SCP-1901-2 display sociopathic tendencies and total recall of the subject's memory. Manifestations created by SCP-1901-2 will attempt to persuade the subject to deposit them within an area where the instance is likely to be documented heavily. Subjects may use their clothes to disguise the SCP-1901-2 instance, and will alert local press groups to the possibility of the celebrity appearing at the location. If the subject accepts, making contact with SCP-1901 will no longer negate its effects. After an undetermined amount of documentation of the instance has been published, it will instruct the subject to take them to a new area and thank them for their assistance. Subjects will usually report positive memories of SCP-1901-2 manifestations. The initial 30 instances of SCP-1901 were discovered on 1978, after a number of reports originating from New Mexico, USA, indicated that the deceased musician has been sighted numerous times. Agents arriving on the scene initially confirmed the sightings, until the arrival of additional agents confirmed SCP-1901-1's anomalous effect. After initial containment, SCP-1901-1 was classified as safe. On 1980, agents embedded in the music label reported that several employees and artists may have been utilizing instances of SCP-1901 for personal reasons. Several persons believed to have used SCP-1901 were detained, as well as several instances of SCP-1901-2. During this investigation, documentation revealing SCP-1901-2's effect and the use of SCP-1901 dating back to 1965 were discovered. All anomalous artifacts were contained, with persons of interest being issued Class A amnestics. As of 1984, SCP-1901 had been reclassified as Euclid. Addendum: document recovered from a person of interest connected to the music label. Dear Tommy, I'll be the first to admit the concept doesn't seem even a bit plausible. After all, it's a guy you've known for years, done shows with him and everything, but think about it. How much can you really recall about working with him? It's all sort of a blur. Rehearsal, the gig, the in-between can be hard to remember. That's not an artifact of our chosen profession, mate. It's the humbug doing its job. The tapes didn't lie. I don't know how that stuff got on the master recording, since it basically gave it all away. There really was a car crash in '66, probably the most ancient day I can remember. We were in a panic, though the band was about to go up in smoke. New as we were, none of us knew about humbug. Lenny introduced us about a week after the funeral, and showed us the model. Took an awful long time to get used to, that did. Rehearsing and playing with a cardboard cutout, with nobody seeing it but you. Every time someone complimented the take, it was our instruction to smile and nod. Christ, if rehearsing was bad, playing the first gig was a nightmare. When it fell over in the middle of the stage, thought we were all washed up. Oh, we of little faith, didn't change a thing. If you want to know the best place to look, Tim's the one to ask. Was the first humbug dealer I dealt with, still one of the best. Going to him first will save you from so many rubbish dealers. Mention me, he might give a little bit of a discount if you aren't cocky about it. Nothing he hates more than cockiness, so watch your tongue. One last thing, don't try and treat the humbug like your old bandmate. It doesn't know any more than you do. That might have been what triggered the end, or at least made it more inevitable. Good luck, mate. Item Number SCP-965 Object Class Euclid Special Containment Procedures SCP-965 is contained within a framed, ready-to-install window, henceforth referred to as SCP-965-1, composed of at least 6 panes of clear glass or similar material, measuring at least 15 cm by 30 cm. SCP-965-1 must in turn be kept within an environmentally controlled storage facility capable of withstanding significant seismic disturbances. SCP-965-1 should be inspected at least once per week to check for degradation of material. At all times, at least 2 similar framed windows must be present and within separate chambers, and additional padding and insulation with no other window pane measuring greater than 14 cm wide or 29 cm tall between them and the current SCP-965-1. The lighting within the chamber containing SCP-965 must be at a minimum of 130 candelas at any time personnel are within said chamber, except during research. While SCP-965 is currently contained within SCP-965-1, our inability to control its movement upon destruction of SCP-965-1 through means beyond proximity have prompted its elevation to Euclid status. Research into a more permanent means to contain SCP-965 is ongoing, and individual experiments may be carried out by Clearance Level 1 personnel after approval by Level 3 Administration. Description: SCP-965 is a visual manifestation that occurs within framed windows. This manifestation takes the shape of the shadowed face of an apparently pale-skinned male that is looking through the window. The exact details shown vary, as does the direction of orientation as well as the age of the person. However, sufficient detail shows it to be consistently the same being at different points of its life, between the approximate ages of 10 and 55. Research into an individual matching SCP-965 has thus far proven inconclusive. SCP-965 will only appear when the relative lighting on the outside of the window falls below 5 candelas, regardless of lighting on the inside. Such terms are possible because the face will only appear at a fully assembled window frame, though it does not need to be currently installed. Thus far, SCP-965 has not shown any ability to intentionally move from one glass pane to another, even within the same installation. It is only able to attain a new manifestation point upon the destruction of the current SCP-965-1, at which point its new habitat will be reclassified as SCP-965-1. The face is visible from the outside portion of SCP-965-1, but despite its two-dimensional nature, it is described as looking away into the room. Initial effects caused by SCP-965 are reports of unease, nervousness, and low-grade paranoia. These sensations will overcome anyone within visual range of the manifestation, even if obscured, such as by curtains. Based upon reports pertaining to residents of the house where SCP-965 was discovered encountering problems sleeping, experiments were conducted using D-Class personnel who were made to sleep in a chamber where SCP-965-1 was installed. An individual that is sleeping in any area visible to SCP-965 when it manifests will invariably have dreams of a disturbing nature, usually involving being chased, attacked, tormented, etc., though without physical contact within the dream. With repeated incidents involving the same subject, as few as 3 but never more than 10 dream cycles before onset, SCP-965 will begin manifesting with a more explicit smile than normal. After this point, the subject will begin complaining of heartburn or abdominal pain, and often begin to vomit blood or have blood and bodily wastes. This is caused by the victim suffering ulcers or low-grade hemorrhaging throughout varied locations in their gastrointestinal tract. The current hypothesis as to the cause of these afflictions is SCP-965's influence artificially accelerating the body's reactions to elevated stress and fear levels. Subjects who advance to this stage have also reported continuing experiences of the facial manifestations of windows during dreams, as well as in peripheral vision while awake, even after being removed from the vicinity of SCP-965. Most suffer from low-grade but lasting feelings of paranoia, as well as sensations that they are being watched or followed. Whether this is in fact some remnant influence left behind, or standard symptoms of distress following the traumatic intrusion of SCP-965 into their psyche is under investigation. SCP-965 has produced no noise to date, and there have been no reported instances of SCP-965 animating in any way once it appears. However, it is capable of disappearing and reappearing at will in different poses. SCP-965 also shows signs of sentience. It has been observed to show disappointment if it manifests to an empty room, irritation or anger when manifesting before someone that had broken a prior SCP-965-1, and one instance of visible fear when in the presence of agent who had earlier participated in its retrieval. Addendum: Incident 965-1 on routine testing involving the destruction of SCP-965-1 confirmed that while a multi-paned window may act as multiple holding zones, sufficient damage to the overall structure disqualifies as a possible replacement. Unfortunately, SCP-965 instead manifested in an adjacent experimentation chamber's observational window. Due to the high standards of Foundation equipment, this required the Window's complete removal and destruction via tactical breaching charge. SCP-965 was viewed with significantly hostile expressions for 1 month after the incident. Addendum: Incident 965-2 on Dr. requested transfer away from the project involving SCP-965. She was reported as beginning to have visions of SCP-965 and to experience feelings of paranoia, similar to those affected during sleep, despite not having slept in the presence of SCP-965 herself. Dr. was temporarily relieved of duties and assigned to psychological care. No other instances of SCP-965 affecting personnel who have not slept in its presence have been reported.